Hi guys, in this video, we're going to learn the different types of ORM, and for this topic, I'll be discussing about this promise-based Node.js ORM, or commonly known as Sequelize. So now, without any further ado, let's get started. To start with, we'll be using this site, this Sequelize ORM, and if it is your first time, please log into this site, which is https sequelize.org. Sequelize is another type or one of the ORMs ORM, which covers with or usually with uses with Sequelize or SQL. So these are the Postgres, MySQL, MariaDB, SQLite, and MS SQL or Microsoft SQL Server. For those first timer, you can log into the site, and we're going to cover up the basic crud on how to use Sequelize in your future development. So if you're ready, let's get started. To start with, I'll be using MySQL, and for the MySQL application, I'll be using this XAMPP or XAMPP. Also, I'll be using another IDE. This one is called IDE SQL. It's not requirements, but if you want an IDE GUI experience with MS SQL or MySQL, I mean, you can use this IDE SQL for free. Now, once you download this application, this is the sample or the tools that we're going to use. As of this time, I already prepared the database, and I named this as TB Sequelize. Okay, so let's proceed. To start with, I already prepared the folder, so I named this as Sequelize_ORM. And for this demo, I will be using VS Code. And for you guys, you can use any IDE on your preference. So just make sure that you have Node.js installed. So either way, so this same goes. Okay, so let's start with our terminal. Like I said, guys, no matter what is your ID, as long you follow this tutorial, it's applied to any ID of your preference. So to begin with, I'll be initialize first by simply npm init -y. Okay, good. Let's clear this up. Okay, for our main or entry point, going to create here a new file that name as server.js. Okay, cool. Now for our first application, I'll be using Express. So to do that, it's kind of slow here. Okay, so seems our PC is starting to get slow. Doesn't matter, we need to wait a little more. Okay, so npm install. So I'm going to install our Express. while waiting for this one, if you missed the first chapter, I already discussed one of the ORMs, which is the Next.js. Please check that video. So what we're going to do for this month is we're going to compare different types of ORM, and you need to pick that based on your requirements. So in the future, or in your future reference, these ORM are really good. So if you like one of this stuff here, you can apply this as well. So it won't limit to your progress. This will simplify your normal query, the usual query that you always does. Okay, so let's check. Okay, so as you can see, we already have our dependency, which is the express. So before going to proceed with the another package, we'll complete this first so that we can work around with this one first. Okay, so let's start with var express. First, we need to import that. So I need to type require express. And from here, going to assign the var app equals to express. This is the common thing. Then going to set our port. Let's say port. And from here, going to set our process.env .port or going to set this port 3000. Then going to call our that server equals to app.listen, and of course with our app.get and the port. There's a bunch of typings here, so let's wait for a while. Okay, so up here, going to call the function and then if we're going to throw an error, then going to assign a message. Let's say server is listening at port, or let's say server is running at http://localhost and the port. And of course, we need to include our server.address.port. Then from here, I'm going to call console.log equals to message. Save. Okay, cool. Okay, for this guys, I'll be using NodeMon. So, but on this part here, I won't install NodeMon. So I prefer to use the npx, which is much convenient. So I'm going to type NodeMon and the name of the application. Okay, cool. So that's it, guys. So that's the first part. So the next part is, since we'll be preparing our Sequelize. So the next thing is we need to prepare, of course, we need to install the next requirements. So for now, I'm going to cancel this one here. Okay, let's me clear this up. Okay, so from this point here, I'm going to install npm I. Of course, to begin with, we need to include Sequelize. And of course, I'll be using MySQL. But for this one, I'll be using MySQL 2. And save for that. In version 6, I noticed that whenever you are, if you're installing MySQL, the first part or the first one, same goes when it comes to the recognition or the connections or the dialect in Sequelize, MySQL is the topmost it requires. That's for version 6. So I'll explain this later. So but right now, I'm going to wait for this step here to finish. Okay, so I think I forget something here. Sorry about that. HTTP. Okay, that's good. Just to save that. Okay, so this will take a while, depending on your internet speed. So for the meantime, I'll be discussing about Sequelize. Before this ORM was introduced, all of us start with the normal or the basic, which is the query base. So it's the query syntax. So wherein we perform select all from certain table, bunch of stuffs like the update and delete. As the time passed by, this stuff are keep changing. And me as a developer for how many years, I noticed that whenever I create a large syntax of or large SQL query code, it really messes stuff. But of course, that's our way of during this time. That's our way of convenient on that type of syntax. And there's no stopping that. Until now, some of the developers are still using the basic query. But for some cases, right now in a modern age or for this year, people tend to move to ORM, which is also I agree. Because right now, ORM does much simplified and much powerful. So yeah, you can use ORM on those things. Okay, so seems this will take time. Okay, sorry, it seems it's almost done. Again, for those who are starters with Node.js, please watch also my video series of Node.js from zero to hero. You can learn a lot of things from there, wherein I write the first step of learning Node.js. So before you're going to step on this part here, make sure you have a basic knowledge of Node.js. Because time goes by, I'll be using Node.js for the meantime for the back end for now. On a later part, we're going to discuss, of course, we're going to merge this stuff here to our front end. So those things are the exciting part. So these are one of the most powerful things. Of course, learning backend is really a good start. So no matter what, you can pick from any backend on your preference. But for this one, we're using Node.js, which is one of the most common or one of the most powerful. Next to, of course, the PHP, which is one of the oldest, Java, and of course the Microsoft, which is the C#, VB.NET, and some stuff. So if you are a .NET programmer, learning those things are really a good one. So all developers starts with the basic HTML, the backend, which is those things that I mentioned. And of course, you can pick any front end for that. Okay, cool. So we're already done from here. It's good. Okay. So now that we're done from this part here, the next thing we need to do now is we need to create a database connection. And to do that, we're going to create a new file here. So that is database.js. Okay. So from here, going to call bar Sequelize. We need to import that package, which is Sequelize. Okay, so oops, yeah, it should not be the one. It will be Sequelize. Let's remove this part here. Okay, but before we're going to continue, like I always do, let's examine first our package so that you will know that what version that we're using. As of the time of this recording, I'm using Express version 4.17, and my database or MySQL 2 is version 2.3.0, and my Sequelize is version 6.6 and 5. So very important to know this version so that it won't be a conflict, because from time to time codes are keep on changing. So sometimes from the future, or if you are ahead of from this year, maybe some codes will not work anymore. So better we know what version to install. Okay, so let's continue. Okay, so from here, going to assign a database connections, which is cons database. Then going to assign the new Sequelize. Okay. So for database connection, I'll be using db Sequelize. Let's check that again just to make sure that we're using the correct database. So this is my database, db Sequelize. Okay, so that's db Sequelize, and the username is root. Password is 12345. And from here, I'll be setting up the host connection. So let's say host. So I'll be using localhost. And for a dialect, okay, I'll be using MySQL. Okay. If you're asking me why MySQL and not MySQL 2, that's also my confusion on the first part. So for some reason, it's just retained to the MySQL. But for now, it's just working this way. So let's just using this matter. Okay. So after that, so in here, going to call the database .sync. And of course, the last one, we're going to export this. So we need to type module .exports equals to database. Wait. Okay. Very cool. Okay, so that's the first part, guys. So right now, what we did is we created our database connection. So just follow along with this one. Now, next thing is we need to prepare now our models, of course. So this is the connections that we're going to connect with. So to do that, we're going to create a new folder, and I'm going to name this as models. And for the models, I'll be using or calling this as customer.js. Okay. So from here, I'm going to call the Sequelize. Require Sequelize. Okay. Then we're going to call this Sequelize for connection. So I need to type Sequelize equals to require. So this is the part where we're going to call our database. So from here, we're going to press /database. And we're going to call our customers, and going to assign the Sequelize.define. Okay, so from here, I'm going to call this as customer. So that's our table. Okay, so let's okay, so I need to put a bracket here for the curly braces and move this along. Okay, good. So this is the first part. Now, since we're defining a table, so the first thing we need to consider is we need to create an ID. Okay, for the type, will be assigned as a Sequelize dot integer, and going to assign this as primary key, which is to true. Then of course we need to consider this. Of course we need to make it auto increment to true. Okay, so okay, so that's it. That's the first part. So next, I'll be assigning a name, calling the Sequelize.string. Okay, that's for the email as name. Next is I will require an email. This is a Sequelize.string as well. Nothing special. And the next one is the address. On the Sequelize.string as well. And a phone number. Let's say Sequelize. I can consider as big int. Okay, cool. Okay, so that's it. Okay, so this is our table structure. So in here, we create a table name as customers. This is our customers table. So from here, since we're make sure this is a plural, so we're going to make it customers. Okay, so I think I need to change this as well. So better, we need to make it more standard. Should be customers. Okay, so the model name is customers.js, and then from here, we set up our table to call with the table of customers. So in the definition field, so we have the ID, name, email, address, and phone number. Okay, so if we're good on that, so the next thing is we need to export this. Exports customers. Okay, so that's the first part. Now Now that we set up our customers, since we already prepared our table, the next thing we need to do now is we need to create our routes for this one. So to do that, let's say our index. Okay. So from this part here, we're going to create routes. So to begin, we're going to create a folder named routes. And then within the folder, going to create an index.js. Of course, I'll be calling that routes. So going back to our server, so we need to make sure that this route is connected. So I'm going to call as cons routes equals to require. Then our routes. So from here, going to call routes/index. Good. Okay, so that's it. So we already prepared our routes. So while doing this one, I'll be running our maybe later. So we can proceed with this one. So we're finished these routes here. So going back to our routes, the next thing is we need to first we need to prepare this one. So we need to type module dot exports equals to function, and from here going to pass the app. So let's say so the first thing is we need to get our URL. So that is the default URL. Okay. Right now we don't have yet the controller for this one, but since we're passing an app, so we make sure that we are passing this app. So to do that, we need to go back here in our router or in our server, and then from here we need to pass that variable. So that's our app. So this is the assigned app from Express. Okay, good. Okay, so I need to save this one here. Then going back to our here. Okay, since we're still creating our first or our default URL, so the next thing is we need to prepare our controller. So from here, need to type controller. Okay. So for that, I'll be preparing we are preparing our first controller. So let's say going to type here as index controller .js. Okay. Okay, so just the basic. Now from index.controller, I'll be typing here as exports/index. So this is a async res and rec. Then we need to pass this along. Let's say go to type here console.log. Welcome to index. Okay, so that should be it. Okay, so from here, so going back to our routes, we're going to call our controller, of course. So to do that, we need to type let's say cons main controller is equals to require dot slash. So going to call with controller slash index controller. Then from here, need to copy this one here and paste it here. Want to go the index. So just make sure that we're running. Okay, so we're calling index. Okay, so should be cons. Okay, there you go. So cons main controller. So this is the controller path, and we're assigning our controller. So let's try that one. So now that we set up that, so next thing is we need to run our npx nodemon server. Okay, good. Now let's try this one first. Now to begin with, I'm using since this is all more on backend, guys, I won't be using any front end for this one. So I'll be using Thunder client. So using this Thunder client, this will be our test page. So I'm going to type it should be http://localhost port 3000. Let's move this a little closer. Okay, let's try. There you go. So I just put it in here, our welcome.index. So better maybe you should put it somewhere here. So let's say going to revise that. Let's say from here index. So instead, like this one, I'm going to send a res.send. I can copy this one here. So that we have a nice presentation. From here, need to send this again. Oops. Press that. Okay. So let's go back here again. So let's say we can put this as res that res.send, then from here res.send. Okay, so let's make it more formal. So from here, got this, do it like this, then put a success, to true, and message welcome to server. So let's rec. No wonder. So this should be rec and this should be res. Okay, so I make it twist. So no wonder it didn't work. So rec res, that should be it. So if I'm going to perform the request again, there you go. Okay, so that's the starting point. Okay, so that took a while. Okay, so that's it, guys. That's the first part. Now, since our server is now accepting requests, which means this part here is working. So let's go back again in there. Now that we prepared our first or our default index, okay, so here. Okay, the next thing we need to do now is we need to create a list preview. So from here, I'm going to create a display list. So what it does is I'll be creating a request, let's say a get request. So I'm going to call a list. Okay. Now at this point here, we'll be accessing our Sequelize. So to do that, I'll be creating a new file inside controller. Let's say I'm going to create a new file here. I'm going to call this as customer controller.js. Okay, so that's the one. So going back to our routes, let's say from here, I'm going to call that cons. So let's say customer controller equals to require dot slash controller slash customer. Okay, so since we're calling that one, and I'm going to prepare that here, and I'll be name that as list. But for now, we don't have the list yet, so we need to create this function here. So to do that, let's prepare our customer.controller. Okay, now these are the requirements for this one here. So first thing, we need to call first our models. So to do that, we need to call that models, which is customers equals to require. Then we need to call the model, which is dot slash models slash customers. Okay. Now one of the next requirement is we need to call the cons, this one, it's OP. Then going to require. So this is our Sequelize. So Sequelize. Okay, so this will perform the operation. So from here, I'm going to call the exports that is. So since better to use async and promise, or async and await. So that's the things that you need to consider when running a Sequelize. So we need to prepare res, and here, and this for that. Okay, so what are the requirements? So from here, we're going to prepare a cons response. Then I'll be using await. Then calling the customers to perform the find all. Okay, so what it does is we're going to list down all the lists within the database. So from here, then that going to call the then. I'll be calling the function data. Okay, so that's it. And I'm going to call cons res is equals to, let's say, success to true, and data is equals to data. Okay, then from here I'm going to return that rest. Let's save. Let's see here. Okay, so we have an error somewhere here. So we have an error with the database 3. So going back to our database, should be cons. Okay, so that's it. Let's save that. Let's try again. Okay, good. Okay, as you can see, guys, at this point here, Sequelize already detect. Now at this point here, it will create a customer table, because since we already connected our Sequelize. So let's check if this table is already created. So this is the power of Sequelize. So from here, we need to refresh. There you go. Okay. Cool. So that's the power of Sequelize. As you can see from this point here, it will auto create the table. So that happens because of this function, this database sync. So whatever changes that you're going to make, database sync will automatically execute those things that we said, especially the models, which is these are the tables. Okay, so let's continue. So going back to our routes, okay. So we're going to test these routes here if this is working. So to do that, let's go back here. Okay, so let's say I'll be using this one. So I'm going to slash here, then type this, then hit send. Seems a little slower. Okay, so this is also one thing we need to check while waiting for that. Okay, let's check our code. For some reason, the request takes a lot of resources. So just make sure that our code is working. Okay, so I think what we need to do is I'm going to cancel this one. Then going back here, I'm going to complete this request here. So let's say then data cons res, and from here I'm going to perform a catch error so that it won't take that long. So from here, I'm going to perform a catch. Then we assign this error to catch this error. So then I'm going to perform a cons res equals to success equals to false. Then from here, going to perform an error and error. Okay, then then going to return that. Return this response here. Okay, since we're catching this one here, then the next one is going to call this res.json. So it should be JSON so that this won't take time to respond. In most cases, these are the most common issues with this one. So yeah, so that should be good. Okay, so let's try again. Let's go back here. Then going to perform this one. Promise projection, origin throw async. Okay. This take time. Okay, let's go back to our customer here. So let's examine why this take time to load. Async. Okay. Customers find all, then function data rest success true data and rest here. Catch error. Let's do this again. So let's check our routes. app.get/list customer. So I think everything's okay. The only thing is here, it's returning it's not reaching, so no wonder. So response, okay, so no wonder. Should be response. If I highlight it here, there you go. Okay, that explains. Now let's try again. So from here, need to click send. There you go. Okay, so that seems to be a problem. Okay, so there's one thing I want to emphasize, guys. If you're running a Sequelize, make sure you're returning a proper JSON. So this is one of the concerns with this part here. So this also I noticed when I created this for the very first time, that this is case sensitive. So what it does is make sure you need to run or return a JSON in response. Yeah, so that's we should need to consider from this one. Okay, so that should work. So let's go back here. As you can see, we got a status of 200, so which means these are okay. So now what we're going to do next is we're going to fill this information. So to do that, we're going to create prepare a create entry for this one. So let's begin with, go back here, let's click here. Let's go back to our routes. Okay, so that's a good part. Now from here, I'm going to perform a create function. To do that, I'm going to create app post /create. Okay, so I'm going to call the customer controller. Okay, for now we don't have the function yet, so I'm going to create that or name that as create. Okay, so take note, so this is a post request, so don't mind the error here. Now from this point here, we're going to, of course, going to copy this one here. Close. So going to rename this as create. Okay, so that's the good part, and the starting part. Okay, so what are the requirements? Now for this one, first, we need to extract the following. First, I'll be receiving a request from the body. Then from the body, I'm going to extract those variables. So these variables are name, email, address, and phone. Okay. Then, once we extract those information, so from here, going to create a response. Then going to call the await. So we need to call our models, which is this customer. And with the operation of create. Okay, that should be it. So I'm going to copy this one here so that it should be a little faster. So take note, these are the variables that we're going to pick from our request body. So from here, we want to call the name. This one is the email. This one is the address. And the phone. Oops, I think, okay, it should not be here. So I put it on the wrong controller. So I need to cut this one here. Should not be here. It should be in customer controller. So next to that, okay, should be here. Okay, so then I'm going to copy this then statement, catch error, and response. So I'm going to copy all these things. They perform the same. Okay, so I'm going to save that. Okay, so I think that should be it. Okay, we're going to enhance this code because since Sequelize is a sensitive type, I'm going to prepare a try and catch for this one. Let's say here, there. Very important if you're writing a code, make sure you need to perform this try and catch function. So what it does is this will trap any unusual error. So from here, you want to catch that. Let's say E console.log E. Okay, so very important. So let's review this one here. So from here, let's check first if there's an error. Okay, no error. Okay, so from this part here, we apply this function try and catch. So for any issues that may rise during this creation. So also we're performing a create function which is default by Sequelize. And we're going to get those values from our request body. So once return or once succeed, so we're going to create a succeed message here. So maybe I need to include or add a message. So let's say message successfully created. Let's make it big letter. Okay. So what it does is we pass this information from this variable here, response, and that response will return as a JSON. Okay, so that's how it goes. So before we continue, I'm going to apply this as well in our first code. Very important to apply this to all. So that should be unique. I'm going to copy here. Okay, so that this one also has the try and catch. Okay, so go back here to our create. So we have, yeah, so basically we already set up the correct format. Yeah, okay, so that's it. Now, before we're going to proceed to this one here, make sure that we are receiving a correct encoding. So since this is a case sensitive, so in Node.js, especially in Express, aside from this one here, we need to emphasize that what type of information that we're going to receive. So to do that, we need to create a middleware and I'll be using this express function, which is reading as JSON. Okay, that's the first one. So make sure we receive a JSON format. And next to that is we need to emphasize another express function, which is the URL encode. So this is the best practice if you're running a request in Node.js. Make sure all your requests should be in JSON format and properly URL encode. So from here, we're going to start with the extend to true. Okay. In the old days, they use body parser, but in a later version, we're using the direct format from the express. So let's go back. I guess this is okay. So let's go back to our routes. So take note, we're using create this time using post. So let's go back to our Thunder client. Okay, before I proceed, make sure guys you know how to use Thunder client. So if you're using like Postman, this is very similar. So also to do that, you need to search that within this extension here. So just search Thunder client and you're ready. So now, I'm going to copy this URL here. Okay. Then I'm going to perform a post. This should be create. So take note because that's our URL. Should be create. Okay, so from here, I'm going to perform our body. So let's say the requirements are the name. So let's say, make sure this is a valid JSON format. So let's say from here, I have to type the name. Next is the address. Let's say right now I'm here in China, address. It's in China. That's where I'm currently right now. So what else? I'll be needing the email. So for our email is ourvoicecodemedia@gmail.com. And the last one is the phone. So let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So let's say it's okay, just simple as that. Okay, make sure if you're running a Thunder client, so it should be a JSON format, because a while ago I already prepared the format, this one, so that it will receive a JSON. Oops. Okay, should be a JSON. Okay, so let's try. So we need to hit send. There you go. Okay, so I think that one is working now. So let's examine this one. So going back to our previous requests. So from here, I'm going to click send. There you go. Okay, good. So now that we perform our create command, so the next thing we need to do now is we need to perform a update. So yeah, so I think that's the next one. We're going to create a update request. So to do that, let's say go to move here, that this will be in group. Okay. So to do that, we need to go back to our routes. Okay, so let's say in here, I'm going to type app.put. Okay, so this is the proper way of calling the update. So we're going to use the put request. So from here, I want to call the customer .controller, and going to name that as update. Okay, so right now we don't have the updates yet. So to do that, let's go back to our customer. Okay, so from here, okay, better going to copy this one so that this will save our time. So from here, going to name this as update. Okay, so next, I'm going to copy this try. So try and this catch. Okay, so that should be it. Okay, that's good. Okay, so what are the requirements for the update? Of course, the first thing is we need to get the request from the body. So to do that, I can copy this one here. So since they're almost the same, then copy this one here from our create. Then I'm going to paste that in here. Okay, then similar to create, I can copy this response here. Okay, you can copy that as well. Then from here, I'm going to paste that in here. Okay, so since we're performing, this time is the update. Okay, so that should be it. Okay, so this is also another thing that we can do from Sequelize. Is in this part here, we can perform the condition. So I'm going to close that. So closing the mark here, another. Okay, so in this section here, we're going to perform the conditions. So from here, we need to type where ID is equals to ID. Okay, so that's how it goes. So what it does is we're checking the ID, and from that ID we can perform these updates. Okay, so I think it's safe to say that we can also copy this function here. So this then. And then we can paste that in here. Okay, so that's the then. Okay, now this is only the difference with this one is that we need to make sure that this one executes or reads the data properly. So to do that, let's say from here, I'm going to make a condition statement. So let's say enter. So from here, going to perform if data.length. Since we're returning an array for that, let's say not equal to 0. Okay, so closing that here. So that's the condition. So let's move this or tab a little so that we know that this is under this one. Now for our message, let's say updated successfully. Okay, good. So that's so basically that's for the condition with success. Now the next thing is, how about if something happens? So from here, going to perform an else statement. Then for our else statement, we're going to perform a res status. Let's say going to return this status as 500. Then send. So from here, going to return a success to false, which means nothing updates. And of course, need to return that data and a message. So let's say could not update with ID with this ID to ID. Okay, so that makes sense. Let's make sure that everything is okay. So from here, make sure we copy this one. Don't forget this one. It's this response JSON should be put in here. Okay. Yeah, so I think that should be it. Okay, so let's go back to our routes. Now that we're done with the updates, so let's try this now. So I'm going to create a new request. And from here, I'm going to copy this one here to here. I'm going to update this one. Update. Okay, so from here, I'm going to perform a put request. Okay, should we put because this is an update? Then I can copy this one here. Then from the body, going to paste this one. So let's say ID is equals to 1. Okay, so as you recall, during our create, that ID is ID1, and these are the information. So let's say I'm going to change my name here. So let's say I'm going to change this as Vicky Boy. Okay, so hope this works. Let's move this a little closer. So let's try. So hit send. Oh, refuse. So why? Let's check our error. If there's an error, app is, oh, there's so much app. Okay, so this happens in our index. So let's check our index. Oh yeah, of course. Should be app. Okay, good. So no more errors. So let's go back here. So we hit again. So hit send. Oh, there's an error again. So let's check why. ID is not defined. Okay, so let's go back here. Oh yeah. So since we're performing an update, we need to include ID as well. Okay, so that should be it. So that this one will take over here. Okay, so I think that should be it. So let's go back to our requests. No more errors. Okay, so I think no more errors. So from here, hit send. There you go. So it notifies here that it has a successful update. So let's check. So let's go back to our previous requests. You can close here so that okay. So we need to click the first part, so which is the display all this. So take note, this is my original information. So if I hit send, there you go. Okay, good. So that one works. Okay, so that should work. So next one is we're going back to let's go back to our routes. Okay, we perform the create. Next is the update. Now this time we're going to perform a search query. So to do that, we're going to perform a app.get. So from this point here, I'm going to call the get. Of course, we need to search that by ID. Okay, so comma customer not get. Okay. So what we are going to do is we're going to search a particular information. So using this URL, and we're going to pass that to this variable here, which is the ID. Save that. Okay, so let's, yeah, of course, there's no, we didn't create this get yet. So let's go back to our customer.controller. And from here, I can copy this one and paste it here. This one should now be get. Then we need to perform the try and catch. Okay, good. Okay, so now that we're on this section here, the next thing is we need to call the variable. Since we'll be using or pass that variable in the URL, we're going to extract that using this rec.params. So which means indicates that we're passing a parameter. So from here, okay, so we can call the const response equals to await customer dot final. So this time we're going to return a response, which this time is the find all. So this is one of the function in Sequelize. So next, we need to perform a condition. So same those as before. So from here, we need to pass the ID is equals to ID. Okay. So from here, okay, we can copy our previous example. Let's say, okay, this should be it. So I can copy this one here, this then, and the catch. Copy that. And going to paste that in here. Good. So let's say I can take off this request here. Okay. So let's fix this line. Okay. So that should be it. And don't forget the last one. Make sure we're returning the JSON. Should be after here. Okay. So very good. So from here, we're extracting the parameters. So let's try this one. So let's go back to our routes. So make sure we're copying this get, then the ID. So from here, going to create another request. I'm going to copy this one. Okay, so from here, let's say should be get slash, let's say 1. Since my information is 1, so I'm going to send that. Oh, so we have an error. So let's check why. Okay, so let's go back to our routes. Why is that? So get ID, customer get. Okay, so from here, from our get, so this is the params. Alright, that's weird. So it seems it's okay. Maybe we need to modify this content here. So from here, this is the ID. So let's check why. Get errors. So there's an error. Okay. So what we need to do is we need to modify our return request. So let's say for some reason there's an issue on the return statement. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an condition statement. To do that, between here, I'm going to type if data.length is not equals to 0, then we can return this data. Okay. So else okay, let's put this indent this one here so that our oops, not too long here. So from our oops, should be this. Okay, so that's the first one. So from here, going to return a rest status. Let's say 404. So make sure, guys, you know how to use these status requests. There are 500, 404. So these are one of the views that most commonly used in programming. So I can, let's say, I can copy this one here and paste here. But we're going to return a false instead of success. And the message is no record found for ID or with ID. Okay, so hopefully this works. Yeah, so okay, so let's try this once more. Cost 3,000. Get. So try. Nope, it's not reading. So we need to make sure, check why this one is not running. Not found. Oh, why not found? Slash get customers. I mean get. Exports get. Oh yeah, I think it's okay. Async request ID request params. That's weird. So let's try to console this one here, just to make sure that we're receiving or getting the ID. Okay, so let's check this again. So localhost / get. So yeah, I think that should be it. Send. Oh, so our request is not properly passed. So let's check why. Oh yeah, of course, definitely. Should be slash. Why did I think about it? Okay, so this should work now. So make sure that we format this one properly. Okay, let's go back here. I can remove this console. Then from our request, if I hit send, there you go. Okay, so that, yeah, that works. So how about we're going to send to no record found. Okay, maybe we need to increase one more. I'm going to create another information here. So let's say which one? Sambo. Deal. Which email. Okay, so we're going to create another one. So let's hit create. There you go. So if we're going to perform a list, there you go. Now let's try again the get request. So if I click this send here, perfect. So that works. So if I pick, going to pick here the one. Yeah. So okay, good. So that works. So finally, so let's go back here. Okay, Now that we perform the list, update, and get, and also the create, this time, let's work around with delete. So to do that, I'm going to create another request here. That should be delete. For the delete, it's similar to what we have done here. So what I'm going to do now is going to perform a slash delete and colon ID, then the controller dot delete. Okay. So for now, we don't have this function yet. So of course, we need to copy that. So I mean, we need to create that. So basically, delete is okay. Okay, so I think we can copy this one, this exports.get. So since this is working, so because it has a similar function, so I can copy that. And from here, I'm going to hit enter. Then replace this one to delete. All right, as simple as that. Okay, so from here, so since this is a delete, in Sequelize, you can call that as destroy. So that's the function for the Sequelize. Then in here, okay, what we can do is we can add one information here. So let's say a message. So we can say deleted successfully with, I guess, simple as deleted successfully. Yeah, that should be okay. So from here in the else statement, I can return a 500 request, so which means that would not delete with ID this one. Okay, so there's no more error here. Yeah, so no error. Okay, so that's it. So we are now going to perform these delete requests. So from here, we're going to pop up or perform this same format as delete. So let's go back to our Thunder client. So I'm going to make another request. From here, I'm going to copy this one here. Okay, so instead of that, let's say going to replace that with delete. And also our request should be our delete function. So that should be our method. Let's say I'm going to delete the ID of 2. Okay, so let's try. So if you hit send, there you go. Yeah, so I guess that works. So let's check our list. So right now I deleted ID2, so it should be return only this one. So let's try. So click send. There you go. Okay, cool. Let's go back here again. So, okay. Okay, so that's it, guys. As you can see, using the most common ORM that you know, Sequelize is one of the most common thing used nowadays. So there are a lot of ORMs in there. Of course, what are the importance of ORM is simply as to reduce our query format. Instead of writing a multiple query line, we can use ORM to simplify those query things. And also, this is much faster and convenient. So as you get used to this will make your programming simple and, of course, and more progress on your future development. So that's it, guys. If you found this video informative, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. And see you guys on the next video series. Cheers!